the Devil's Tavern held many secrets. The establishment was notorious for housing smugglers, cutthroats, thieves, and pirates. If Lord Cobham was meeting anyone here to further promote his illicit behaviour, she was going to find out. Without warning, Ravenna was roughly pulled down onto a lap. The man's breath reeked of ale, and he smiled, fingering her locks. "This place keeps getting better and better. I haven't seen you here before." He lowered his head and sniffed down her body. You smell of lavender." She didn't think it wise to tell the man what he smelled like, so she politely nodded. When she tried to stand, he pulled her back down and held her with a firm grip. "Let me tell you a little secret." He lowered his voice and leaned forward. "I think you are by far my favourite." His hand encircled her breast, and it took all of Ravenna's might not to slap him. And that's when she looked up and noticed the men. Dear God. Lord Cobham was walking straight toward her. She hastily glanced to Cobham's right and saw Charles Paget. What was he doing here? She couldn't risk being spotted, so she did the first thing that came to mind. She turned in the lap of the man who held her and brought his lips to hers. The man's comrades cheered him on, and his hands roamed all over Ravenna in places they shouldn't. She had to endure quite a repulsive kiss, and felt as though she needed a cloth to wipe away the slobber that had escaped the man's lips. How she despised this part of the masquerade. Only when she was confident that the two men had departed did she dare pull back, attempting not to think about the bile that rose in the back of her throat. She placed her finger to the man's lips. "I have something for you. I'll be right back." When the man nodded, as she knew he would, she made her escape to the back room. She didn't want to spend another moment in that place. Grabbing her cloak from the corner, she bolted out the door. She did not look back. What was Lord Cobham doing with Charles Paget? She thought Paget was still in Paris. No matter, she would simply give the information to her uncle. She wrapped her cloak tighter around herself as a cool breeze whipped her cheeks. She walked with long, purposeful strides, clutching the dagger in her pocket. She didn't like walking the streets of London by herself, let alone by the docks in the darkened hours of the night. One of these days, her luck was going to run out. She prayed it was not at this moment. Her uncle's carriage, waiting at the end of the dimly lit street, was a welcome sight. George climbed down upon her approach and extended his hand. He was a large man with greying hair at the temples and stood well over 6 feet tall. He always aided her when she needed protection from places like the Devil's Tavern. "Lady Walsingham, did you find what you were looking for?" "Thankfully, yes." "Home, my lady?" "Yes, please." Ravenna climbed into the coach and breathed a sigh of relief. She sat back, closed her tired eyes, and fell asleep to the gentle, rhythmic movement of the carriage and the sound of clomping hoofbeats. When the carriage suddenly stopped, she was jolted awake. "My lady, we have arrived." She took George's hand and climbed down. "Thank you. Could you please ask my uncle to pay me a visit on the morrow?" He nodded. "Of course. Have a pleasant evening, Lady Walsingham." Ravenna walked to the front of the manor house and quietly opened the heavy door. It was nearly midnight and the house was silent. Her sisters were already in bed. She hated when she had to be away from them, but at least she would be there in the morning as the girls broke their fast. She lifted her cloak and climbed the steps on the tips of her toes. As she made her way down the hall to her bedchamber, she passed the family portraits that hung on the wall. She could feel her father's gaze upon her, and couldn't help but wonder what he would think of her now. She closed the door to her chamber, and when she heard the soft click of the latch, she sighed. Removing her cloak, she tossed it onto a chair as a faint smell of smoke invaded her senses. A voice spoke from her bed, and Ravenna jumped. "Where the hell have you been? And what in the name of God are you wearing?" Ravenna placed her hand over her heart to make sure it didn't leap from her chest. "Grace!" Her sister sat up on the bed. "What's his name? I want to know." Ravenna wasn't in the mood for this. All she wanted was to be in her warm bed, alone.